Hey, Seth David here from the world famous Nerd Enterprises Incorporated, and in this edition of Nerd's Guide to the Galaxy, I want to talk to you about the difference between what you can and can't control and how that informs your next right indicated action. I've experienced this myself, and I've seen it happen with a lot of my colleagues just based on following social media and seeing the kinds of things people post about. So I'm going to give you a scenario. In fact, I'm going to give you two scenarios, and we're going to talk about both of them here. So let's say you sit down, you're just starting your day, you scheduled, I know the way I work is I have a specific day and time, on any given day of the week that I'm going to work on a particular client. Throughout the week, I gather up the items I need to get done, anything they email me that needs to be followed up on. I check if it needs to be handled immediately. Usually it doesn't. It goes onto my list of things to do the next time I work on that client. So now it's 9 o'clock and I'm sitting there and here's the day. This is the time. And two scenarios that can come up, in particular with newer clients where we haven't really quite ironed out all the systems yet. So I sit down to do my work, and the clients promise me they're going to get me whatever documents I've told them I need in order to get started or do the work. And I sit down, it's 9 o'clock, and it might take me a few minutes to get acclimated. I'm going through that list of things, and now it's 9:15. I'm ready to go. I go to open up the folder where they were supposed to have uploaded documents to me, or the app, whatever I'm using, and the documents I need aren't there. And I'm like, now what? I can text or email or Slack or Discord the client and say, hey, I need these documents, but the reality is the client may not be available to get them to me immediately. And if the client hasn't proactively done what they promised they would do, which is upload the documents in whatever means we've gone over, it's not likely I'm going to be able to get that right away right now. Okay, that's the first scenario. Second scenario, again, more typical with newer clients. Let's say I'm setting up, for example, some kind of bill pay app for that client, and I'm getting things set up. I finally got some bills in there. I want to get them, coded and whatever I need to do and scheduled to be approved by the client, whatever it might be. And so I'm dealing with an app that I'm just getting set up for a client, and I run to a snag, and something's not working. And of course, initially I try to troubleshoot it. Maybe it's something I'm doing wrong. And so I go and review, what I've entered, whatever options I've chosen, whatever it is. I go through it, and I've confirmed, backwards and forwards, 6 ways till Sunday. Nothing I can do. Whatever's going on, I'm clearly going to need support from the app in order to figure out what I'm doing wrong, or figure out maybe it's a bug on there and that needs to be fixed, right? Either way, the point is I am at that point where I no longer have any control. I've done everything I can do on my end. Now I need to leave it in somebody else's hands. So in either case, I'm at a sticking point. I'm stuck. I can't go forward. And what I've seen a lot of us do, and I'm guilty of it myself, right? This is as much for me as it is for anybody else, is I get frustrated. And so I'm going to just keep grinding at it and trying to figure it out. And, I can waste an hour doing something like that. Or what's even worse, and again, I'm guilty of this as much as the next person, but I've been conscious of it and working on it myself and working on doing this less and less. But what I still see a lot of people doing, and the more I'm conscious of it and trying to do it less myself, the more aware I am of where others are doing this. And what am I talking about? Well, we take to social media. And maybe it's Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever it is. We take to social media, and even we'll do it generically. We know better. We're professional enough not to, call out our client by name, but we start venting about the client. Say, man, I wish these clients, they never give me what I need. And then I'll have some of my friends, my colleagues who experience the same thing, and they'll jump on and they want to support me, and they'll say, yeah, you know what, I'm so sick and tired of this. These clients, they just never give us what we need. And, on some level, that's going to feel good because you're getting the support and you're getting people kind of sharing with you that, they've had this experience too, and it makes you feel like you're not alone. And let's say you had originally sat down to do that work at 9 a.m., and then by 9:15, you realize, you got stuck in whichever scenario it might have been. And so now you're taking to Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn, or Snapchat, or wherever it is you go. And now it's 9:30, or maybe 9:45, or maybe even 10 o'clock, especially if people happen to be around and they jump on your thread and start having a conversation with you about it. So now instead of losing 15 minutes, I've lost an hour, right? On something that, if this had been a time that I had reserved for going onto social media, okay, still probably not the best way to interact on social media, but I'll cover that at the end of this video. I'll talk about, what I think is a better way. But meanwhile, I've lost an hour when I could have stopped the loss at 15 minutes, right? It's funny, I just thought of this in stock market trading. There's something called a stop loss, where you literally put a limit on an order that's, if the stock you own is going down, you can put in a limit order that says if it trades down below this price, sell, right? So, but we can do that with our time. Put in a stop loss. Say, okay, I've spent the 15 minutes I'm going to spend. I've gone as far as I can go in either scenario. There's one thing to do next in either scenario, and that's what I'm going to talk about now. Okay, instead of going to social media. So the first rule is don't go to social media, because as much as that might feel good in the moment, it's not a great use of time. In fact, it's a terrible use of time on a number of levels. So what is the next right indicated thing I should do in either of those scenarios? So let's first talk about the one with the documentation that we don't have, that the client promised they would give us. Okay, so the first thing I need to do, of course, is reach out to the client and inform them, hey, I sat down to do the work, I don't have what I need. And now we start laying out the boundaries. We start drawing some lines in the sand, and we say, so here's the deal, because I can't move forward without these documents on what I had planned to do today. So now I'm going to give the client a list. I'm going to say, here are the exact documents I need. I don't care if they've been given the list 6 times. I'm going to give it to them a 7th, because clear is kind, unclear is unkind. No matter how clear you think they should be, don't assume anything. All assumptions go out the window, and we just give them the list and say, this is an explicitly clear list of everything I need. And once you have informed me and I then confirm that I have received 100% of these items, I will then schedule the time when I will follow up and work on this. Now, again, be clear. That doesn't mean I'm going to get to work on it that moment. That means then and only then will I look at my calendar and schedule the time. It might be another week before I can get to it and do it again. Now, this does a couple of things. It fiercely protects your own time. Right? So that's what I can control, is I can protect my time. I can protect my schedule. I can put stop losses in to prevent others from wasting any of my time. And that's one way I do it. And so, but again, clarity. I have to be very clear with my client, and I have to do this compassionately, by the way. You don't want to slam your client and shame them for not getting what you needed. That's going to be counterproductive. That's not going to motivate the client to get what you need. And ultimately, what you want to do here is motivate and inspire your client. And here's how we are motivating them. Is we're giving them a consequence for not doing what they promised. Their work is now going to be delayed. That's their fault, right? And you're making it clear without actually saying it. You're not going to go out and say, this is your fault, right? But you're making it clear in the way that you lay out your boundaries and your rules of engagement that, hey, if you don't get me what I need, when you promised it to me, then there's going to be a delay. I'm not going to waste my time chasing my tail and chasing after you for every little one-off item. And every time you check off another one of those items on my list, I'm not going to stop what I'm doing and jump in and take care of it. No, that's not how this works. What I will do, as I said, as you'll explain to the client, is I've given you the list. When 100% of these items are taken care of, then I will jump in so I can get it all done at once, in one sitting, in one hour session, whatever it's going to take. So that's how we deal with the documentation needed. In the case of the app where I've run into a bug, or maybe just my own inexperience with the app and I just don't know exactly where to go to do everything I need to do, then the only thing to do is reach out to their support. But here's the thing. We want an equal level of clarity when we reach out to support. I see this all the time, not in the context of support requests, but a lot of people ask me a lot of questions, and I can't tell you how often. I'm sure on a daily basis, at least one question I'm asked, probably more than that. I have to come back and say I need more information in order to answer your question properly. And so you want to prevent that from happening to you by putting extreme clarity on your request of that app's support. So you give them all the information. You tell them exactly whose bill you're entering. You tell them exactly who the client is whose bill you're working on, right? You give them every possible detail around the situation, because that cuts down on all the back and forth that they would otherwise have to email you the next day and say, hey, we need more information, right? So you want to limit that as much as possible. Assume the person on the other end has no clue or context of what you're doing, even though you might think they should because they work for that app. Just assume they don't. Assume you're talking to somebody and it's their first day, and give them information accordingly. They're not going to get mad at you for over-informing them. In fact, they're going to appreciate it, I can almost guarantee you. And you'll appreciate it because you're much more likely to get to a succinct answer that helps you move forward a lot faster that way. So extreme clarity, reach out to support. And then in either case, in either one of these scenarios, if you're like me, then I like to take notes because I don't like having to sort of reinvest the time that I already spent in that first 15 minutes to get sort of acclimated with what needed to be done. And a great way to mitigate that is to take notes. So I have, I use Notion. I take notes on every client. I will make a note and sort of write myself a note to the future explaining here's what happened, here's where I'm at, here's what I'm waiting on, here's what I need to make sure is taken care of before I can move on and do the next thing. So now we've cleared up what the exact next right indicated thing is to do in each of these scenarios, and I'm giving you specific examples so that it's not just some concept or theory, but obviously you want to be able to take whatever comparable situation you're looking at and apply it in the same way. The bottom line is I can't control my client giving me the documentation. I can't control the app not working, or I can't even control my lack of understanding until somebody gets back and shows me, oh, here's what you missed, right? I just don't have control. I've reached that point of no control. So what's the next right indicated thing? Do the follow-up. Do the thing that you can do, where you do have control, and then move on. That's the only other thing left to do after you've done that is move on. Now, it may be that you have other work you can do for that client. If so, great, get on it. If not, then you just wrap it up, do as I said, communicate with the client, let them know what's going on, and then move on to the next project or next thing. Now, let's get back to, what I believe would be a really good use of social media behind something like this. Not at this time, but maybe later in the day. If you're like me, the time I generally try to reserve for when I'm going to jump into social media and interact with people and see if anybody's mentioned me or needed anything is, like between 5 and 6 p.m. The workday's kind of over, and I reserve that hour for, communications, email catch-up, and all those sorts of things. That time of day, what I can do, instead of even anonymously disparaging my own client, what I can do instead is I can talk about, how I got stuck on these things and what I did to overcome those obstacles. Now what I'm doing, instead of going into social media and complaining, is I'm offering people the solution that I used in this scenario, which a lot of other people can probably use. They can probably use that guidance or advice. Now, instead of disparaging a client, even if it's anonymous, what I'm doing is I'm contributing something positive to my community. I'm inspiring people. I'm giving them something they can use. Chances are I'll also get interactions with that thread, but I guarantee you they're going to be much more positive, and I guarantee you that's going to feel even better than the feeling you get from people sort of commiserating with you, right? It's sort of like you're existing on a whole different plane. Okay. Now let me give you one other sort of scenario here that's very real. It literally happened as I was writing this article for this video that I'm now recording. And I'm not even joking. This is a true story. As I was writing the article, a brand new client I'm working on, his employee that I've been interacting with a lot in our Discord server sends me a LinkedIn request. So I'm like, oh, cool. I love connecting, especially that's the most appropriate place to connect with, your clients and also their employees and people that you're working with, right? That's literally what LinkedIn is all about. Now imagine if when I accepted that connection request, he just was curious, as I would be, and jumped over and looked at my feed to see, hey, what does Seth post on LinkedIn? And let's say he did that and he sees me writing a post on LinkedIn about, quote unquote, these clients, they're so difficult. I can never get what I need from them. Now, it may not even be about him, but he doesn't know that. And he could certainly, reasonably question whether or not it is about him. So now I am, now I'm in a place, I'm putting myself in a place, knowing or not, where I might be making my client feel really bad or my client's employee. Now, what's this guy going to see when he jumps onto my LinkedIn feed? Well, I've got it up here on my screen, and it's a post where I posted a reply to someone who was very happy about some content I put out there that was incredibly helpful, right? And so you can see Rachel saying that, she loves what I'm doing. I've started this program called Ask Nerd, where people can ask me any questions, and I'm going to answer them on YouTube and give my thoughts, right? This very video could have been something like that if somebody had asked me what to do in these situations. It's not the case, but you get the idea. when he comes over, he's going to see something that's very positive, that's very helpful, that's moving, if anything. And if anything, I not only don't have anything to worry about, I'm sort of excited. I hope he does check out my LinkedIn feed, because hopefully he'll see it and be inspired and be like, oh, wow, this is really great stuff. And it'll give my client's employee, who talks, by the way, to my client, the one who actually hired me, it'll give him, if anything, a really good feeling about who I am and what I do and what I'm putting out there. So bottom line, if you're on social media complaining, especially complaining about your own clients, it makes you look bad. Not to mention, it could tickle your own clients' insecurities as they follow you on social media. And I learned this the hard way many years ago, where I wrote a blog post. And in the blog post, I discussed how I was going to go see this client today, and the client can be a little neurotic, and, I'm hoping things go well, or something along those lines. It was so long ago, I don't remember exactly, but I remember using the word neurotic because that was definitely brought up. What I didn't know is that one of my client's employees regularly read my blog. I guess she liked reading my blog. I had no idea, but she certainly didn't like reading that, where I was making comments about her employer. And I went to show up at that client's office that day, and my client hands me a printout of my blog post and asked me about it. Now, you can imagine the pickle that put me in, and what I had to very quickly think on my feet and figure out about how to sort of get out of that one. It was not a good day. It was not a proud moment in my experience, but I learned something really, really important, which is, and I'll bring it forward to current stuff that I'm learning, which is vibe in private. Don't ever go out on social media and publicly disparage your client, no matter how anonymous you think you might be doing it. No matter how anonymously you think you might be doing it, guaranteed one of your clients could read that, and even if it's not about them, think that it might be. And already you're off on bad footing with somebody. You're breaking down relationships instead of building them up. And social media should be about doing everything in your power to build and strengthen relationships, not tear them down. So you don't ever want to do anything that could even potentially have that effect. Have stuff like this showing up in your feed, positive stuff that you're doing to contribute, rather than things that you're doing that kind of take away because you're negatively commenting, again, even if it's anonymous, about some bad experience you had. Reserve those conversations for private, for people you can trust, people you can lean on, and it should be about getting solutions for what can I do about this? How can I improve this situation? Not just venting. That doesn't help anybody, and it's just sort of bad energy, and it's not good for anyone. So that, my friends, is my 2 cents or 10 cents worth on the difference between what I can and can't control, and how that informs the next right indicated thing I should do in any given situation. As always, I hope you learned something here, had some fun along the way. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you in the galaxy.